Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is Undead Design and I'm Jerry. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. Thank you for your support. Today I'm going to be installing rear camber arms in the G35 to straighten out that rear end and looking at a lockout kit and the purpose of that. And then we'll be talking about my first crash on a drift day. Stick around to the end and I'll give you my best and my worst runs. As usual, we start by pulling out the old parts so we can put the new ones in. Here I'm installing the first of the lockout bolts and throwing on a little blue Loctite just to be safe. It doesn't hurt to have a mallet on hand to persuade those stubborn bolts. Unfortunately, to get this bolt all the way out, I had to unhook the clamps from the sway bar and kind of wedge it out of the way so that I could get the bolt free. Out with the old and in with the new. The thing I like about these Voodoo 13 parts is that they're really stout. I mean, they just can hold up to anything, I'm sure of it. But I also really like the fact that it uses heim joints instead of ball joints, or instead of bushing, for that longevity sake. Once I fix something, I don't want to have to fix it again. I'm matching the length of the new arms to the old arms so that I can install them and drive the car over to get it aligned without it being too squirrely. So I want to show you guys what a lockout kit does. This is the Camber, stock camber bolt for G35, and what it does is when you have the stock arms, which are not adjustable, they're just solid, then this goes on there and it just gives you a little bit of movement because of the off-center washer. It has a slot that it fits in, and then based on where you put it in its rotation gives you just about, I don't know, maybe half an inch of adjustment, something like that, right? But when you install adjustable arms, you no longer need to have this, and this can actually throw off the adjustment that you have on your arm by this moving around, and so you want to have this be locked. And the way you do that is with a lockout kit. So it's for these. It has these square washers that fit in the slot, and so they, even if they spin, they can't change your adjustment on your camber or whatever setting you're on the toe, etc. And so that's what the purpose of this is, and that's what we're installing in addition to the camber arms. And now it's just a matter of putting everything back together the way we took it apart after swapping in the new parts. Notice that when I'm putting in this lockout bolt, I am turning it backwards from the way that it was so that the nut is towards the sway bar, so I don't have to remove the sway bar to get it out later. Anything you can do to make working on your car at the track easier is a good thing. I'm only using the impact until the bolts are snug. Then I use a ratchet to torque them down the rest of the way. And now just tightening down the lock nut on the adjustment part of the camber arm, and we are done. Okay, so the God thought of the day. After having my first crash at a drift event, it made me think about the concept of fear, because I had a little trouble committing to that turn after having that crash. And so it just brings up that idea, we experience things in this life that can make us fearful. But the thing about it is that fear is not helpful. So there's a difference between being fearful and being cautious. Cautious means that you weigh the risks, you make a decision. Fear just means that you're reacting with emotion and you're not, making an intelligent choice. And that being the case, we're not supposed to live in fear. As a matter of fact, the Bible says 365 times, one for each day of the year, not to fear. In some form or another, it's phrased. To not be afraid, to fear not, those kinds of things. And so it's not something that's meant to be one of our trademarks. We're not supposed to be fearful. And so that being the case, we need to press into those things. Most of the time, the things that we're afraid of never even come to fruition. We spend all this time worrying about things that could go wrong. And then when they do go wrong, we have a really hard time going back to it and doing the things that we need to do to take care of business. And so it makes me think of a verse in 2 Timothy. Paul, the apostle, is writing to young Timothy as he's kind of working through the ideas of being a pastor and how he's supposed to go about doing that and living out in his gifts and things. And he tells him to not be afraid. As a matter of fact, the way that he phrases it, he says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but instead of power and love and of self-control. And so those are things that manifest when we're not operating in fear. When we're not operating in fear, we can have power, we can have strength in our life. When we are not operating in fear, we can have love for other people, which is hard to do when you're worried about yourself. And then the other thing is that we can have self-control, right? And it goes back to what I was saying before, that fear is not being in control of the situation, not making decisions and just reacting versus being cautious and making decisions and weighing risks and those sorts of things. And so that being the case, my encouragement to you guys is don't be afraid. Don't let fear run your life. So, if there's something that you're not willing to start because you're afraid of it, you don't know how it's going to go, jump in, do it. And if you've done something and it's gone pear-shaped and it's not going the way that you wanted it to go, I challenge you to, get back on the horse, as they say, or tackle that turn again, and don't let fear stop you from pursuing the things that you feel like God's called you to. Have a great day, guys, and I will catch you next time.